Hey there, Mark Brown. Hey, we just got back from Arizona, from the desert to the desert for me. And we did a workshop, a breakout session where we did some live coaching. Got some ahas. We always have fun when we share the stage, and hopefully we dispelled some wisdom. See, I'm not very good with the words. That's your category, but that's what we want to do. Do you use rhetorical devices?
Anyone can give a presentation. Few deliver unforgettable presentations. What's the difference? You're about to find out. Welcome to the Unforgettable Presentations Podcasts with your hosts, world champion speakers and coaches Mark Brown.
Your life tells a story, and there's someone out there who needs to hear it.
And Darren LaCroix.
Stage time, stage time, stage time.
Ready for some powerful presentation ahas? Let's dive right in.
All right there, Mark Brown. We're talking words. I got my dictionary.
Oh, man.
Now, my style is different from Mark's. His world championship speech was a schooling in rhetorical devices. Now, here's the cool part. It's not part of my delivery style. It's not part of my writing, but I understand it. I appreciate it, and I like it. So even if it isn't something you do, the audience likes when you can do something like this. It just makes your speech more poetic. So Mark, this is my urging, not yours. Mark is super humble. If you don't know him, meet him, talk to him. If you're with us at NSA in Scottsdale, Arizona, welcome to the podcast that we told you about from the stage. But we're going to start off by just showing or hearing Mark's speech, and then we're going to dissect some of it. And we're actually going to do this in two parts. We're going to dive deep into a couple rhetorical devices, and next week we'll go into more. So this is part one. But Mark, anything before we show this?
A couple of thoughts. One is, this was 30 years ago, okay? And I wasn't even aware, to be very honest, I wasn't aware of some of those devices that I was using at the time, but I had a coach, David Brooks, 1990 world champion speaker for my contest speech, who's also a writer and a wordsmith. So much of what I learned from him. It's going to be very interesting to kind of dissect my own talk, but I yield to powers that be. Let's have some fun with this.
Yeah, right? and if you're a professional speaker, look at some of your stories. Maybe your stories are already great, but what if you could wordsmith a couple words? It just might go more deeply into the subconscious, make a deeper connection, and make you look even better. So
real quickly, don't forget now, this is a world championship of public speaking in 1995, and speeches are about 7 minutes long. For those who are brand new, who are new to us, who may not understand, that's the context. Here we go.
Our next speaker, Mark Brown, a second chance. A second chance, Mark Brown.
You never get a second chance to make a first impression. Mr. Toastmaster and friends, that phrase is fairly common. At first look, we automatically draw quick conclusions about people for various reasons. It could be their appearance, other people's opinions, our own preconceived ideas, or just plain ignorance. We don't always give a second chance. Let me explain. Recently, my wife, Andrea, our 3 children, and I sat down to watch a very important film, Beauty and the Beast. Oh, you've seen it? Then you know that this is a film you can't watch just once. Your children won't let you. I've seen it 13 times since last Monday. Don't get me wrong. The movie is great for children. The music, the magic, the mystery. But the message is important for all of us. Picture this. The villain is the influential Gaston. He's tall, dark, handsome. I can relate to that. Gaston is in love with the beautiful Belle, but she spurns him and befriends the beast. Well, in a fit of jealousy, Gaston uses his influence and turns the entire village against Belle and the beast. Except for seeing his face once in a magic mirror, the villagers know nothing about the beast. But Gaston, he fuels their fear of the unknown and whips them into a frenzy. This angry mob cuts down trees and they make clubs. They brandish knives, pitchforks, and torches. And they march through the forest singing, "We don't like what we don't understand. In fact, it scares us, and this monster is mysterious at least. Bring your guns, bring your knives, save your children and your wives. We save our village and our lives. We'll kill the beast." Why? For years, the beast had lived in isolation, but no one took the time to say, wait, what's he really like? Who is this beast? Oh no, he wasn't given a second chance. And the irony is, the real beast was in the hearts of the angry mob. He was a victim of the real beast. Intolerance, indifference, and ignorance. Oh well, it's a movie, it's a fantasy, but intolerance, indifference, and ignorance are a reality. We've got to deal with it every single day. I'll give you an example. Pat Harper, a beautiful network news anchor, reported on the plight of the homeless in New York City a few years ago. To appreciate their circumstance, she dressed as they dressed. She walked as they walked. She lived as they lived for several days. She carried a concealed microphone, and a hidden camera crew followed her every move. It was Christmas time, the season of love, cheer, and goodwill. But here's what the camera saw. I'll never forget this. It was snowing, bitterly cold, and there she sat, huddled in a doorway, shivering, trying to fend off the bone-chilling winds. But hardly anyone noticed her. Those who did hurried by. Some looked right at her and yet right past her. Others looked right through her as they thought, homeless, useless, worthless. No one took a second look. To them, this beauty had a beastly appearance. But the real beast was in the hearts of those who treated her with disdain. Oh yes, the beast of intolerance, indifference, and ignorance. The sad truth is, it happens all the time. I'm not just pointing fingers here because I admit I've done it too. But we don't always think about it until we come face to face with it. Perhaps you have been a victim of the beast. Think back. Do you remember the pain you felt when you faced intolerance just because you were different? Do you remember when you faced indifference? Because like Pat Harper and so many others, well, your situation, that's your problem. And do you remember when you faced ignorance like that of those villagers? Because someone felt as they did, oh, we don't like what we don't understand. In fact, it scares us. Do you remember how deeply it hurt? Perhaps you have participated in acts of intolerance, indifference, and ignorance. Are you guilty of feeding the beast? Is there someone out there, someone in your workplace, someone in your neighborhood, someone in your home who has heard your beast roar? Oh, my friends, do they not deserve a second chance? As the film Beauty and the Beast concludes, the beast dies. And in his place, because of Belle's love, aha, you guessed it, a handsome prince lives. You see, Belle gave him a second chance. Don't you just love it? My children did. It's a perfect fairy tale ending. But that story is a fantasy. Reality, as we know, is not so romantic. And the fantasy will never become reality unless we attack the beast, the real beast. Intolerance, indifference, and ignorance. Yes, let's kill the beast, because everyone deserves a second chance. Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this, like Mark said, it was 30 years ago, yet the message is still relevant, and the writing still makes it compelling and intriguing and a joy to listen to. And if you're listening to this, we're talking about rhetorical devices. We'll cover a few this week, and we'll cover a couple more next week to go more deeply. The video is on YouTube if you want to watch it and see Mark's handsome face and amazing delivery. Well, that was 30 years ago, Mark, you know.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's real now. Thank you. I appreciate
Mark,
that.
let's dive in. I mean, every time I watch this, it's a masterpiece. Now, I know you worked really hard with David Brooks, gave him, your coach, a lot of credit. By the way, if you don't have a coach sees things that you don't see.
Right.
If you're a pro or want to be a pro, get some qualified coaching, please. 1, 2, 3 sessions, whatever it is, but it's going to unleash part of you that you can't do yourself, that you can't, part of your power that you have within you and the ideas that you have within you, but it's just making it much more digestible, hence unforgettable. Mark Brown?
You have to agree on that point, Darren. David Brooks helped me see things I didn't know were there, and a good coach will do that for you. So as we were playing that video again, it is literally 30 years old. It was recorded in August of 1995 at the World Championship. And I realized that there were several rhetorical devices there, which I confess I wasn't aware of at the time. So we're going to spend a couple of episodes looking at some of these devices, and hopefully you'll get a nugget to inspire you to revisit a speech you've done before, or one you're working on right now, where one of these devices could actually help you to enhance your presentation and give the audience a better experience, not just of hearing it, but also experiencing it. What do you think, Darren?
And even if it's not your whole speech, we'd love you to do your whole speech, but we know that's asking a lot. But what about your signature story? Let's start there, because if it's your signature story, if this idea can make that better, then the idea could permeate your whole speech. So I'm going to encourage you to just pick that one or maybe a secondary story and work on that. Ask yourself, how could I apply this device to that story? Mark?
And just one little end note to that comment. Darren, when he first began competing years ago, he took his stories and he put them into a mini speech format for the purpose of making the story better and to put that back into his keynote. And that way he would elevate his whole keynote. And that, Darren, you told me was actually transformational. So let's jump in and look at the speech. We're not going to play the whole thing again, but hopefully over time you'll go back to it. And very early on, very early on, I was using a particular device that is like hyperbolic. It's called hyperbole, where you exaggerate something, not in an outlandish way. But I talked about watching a Disney film, Beauty and the Beast. I said, oh, you've seen it. You can't watch it more than once because the kid won't let you. I've seen it 13 times since last Monday. Did I see the film 13 times? The contest was on a Saturday. Did I see the film 13 times since the previous Monday? Obviously not. I had to fly from New York to California with my family. I didn't do it. But the audience reacted and they laughed because they got the idea that hyperbole wasn't intended to magnify me or puff me up. It was a humorous moment. And everyone understood when you have kids, Mommy, can I watch it again? Mommy, can I watch it again? So the number 13 was not realistic. It was hyperbolic, but it was effective. So well-chosen hyperbole can really be effective. I even said, and I also use a bit of a downplayed. Darren, you call it a misdirect when I said we were going to watch a very important film. We're thinking educational. We're thinking how the kids can learn a deep lesson. Ironically, it was a lesson, but not in the way we thought. When I said Beauty and the Beast, the audience laughed. It defied their expectation. Two simple techniques that early on brought the audience into my corner, gained their empathy, and also they felt a connection. Like I said, if you see it, you can't watch it more than once, your children won't let you. So by using that device, I also gave myself an opportunity to connect personally with people in the audience who were parents, grandparents, godparents, uncles, aunts, who've ever had a kid say, Mommy, Daddy, can I please watch this again? And you're thinking, we saw it at 2:00 in the afternoon. But it was a way for the audience to relate to me. And whenever you can get the audience to be in your corner, to connect with you and to relate with you early, it is to your advantage. What do you think, Darren?
Yeah, and that's more of a comedy technique than a rhetorical device, but we wanted to mention it because it's a great example of that. And Mark, in the comedy world and in the speaking world, we've learned from Patricia Fripp, the specificity since last Monday.
Right.
That's not just, we've watched it a lot.
Yeah.
Watched it a lot this week, might get a smile or a cute, but it was a since last Monday. The specificity of Monday, last Monday, is where it really becomes, bam, a joke.
And to double down on that as well, you'll notice I didn't say 10 times or 15 times or 20 times. We advise against using numbers that end in a 0 or a 5. Why? Everybody says 10, 20, 30, 40. But 13 is a unique number, and it's funnier. And Darren, early on when you and I began to work together in 2001, you had a little bookmark about funny words like kumquat and so on. But you also emphasized don't say 0 when you can say 7. So get one that sounds funny, it's unique and more memorable than I saw it 10 times. An aside to add to the discussion. I want to leave that.
Yeah, and it's we say specific numbers are funnier than round numbers. Again, that's a comedy device, not a rhetorical device. But since you just listened to the speech, want to bring it up, which is why we have to cut this into 2 parts. It's so much you want to share.
I know, but the main point there was a hyperbole. I said 13. It was an inflated number, but for effect, and it was effective. And that particular device, anyone can use and use it wisely. But we always say, I told you 1,000,000 times. Well, think about a more unique way of saying it to make it more memorable. So a hyperbole is very, very effective. Early on, Darren, I also used the idea of an alliteration. I said, this movie is great for kids. The music, the magic, the mystery, but the message. So the M, the alliterative letter M, the music, the magic, the mystery, and the message. Now, I'm going to digress a little bit or go a little off the track. I used 4 words. We are often told there's rhythm in the triad, and there is. The way I did it was I said the music, the magic, the mystery. I got my triad in. I got it. Then I paused. But the message is important for all of us. So I got the triad, I got the alliteration, but to double down and to drive it home, I used the 4th word, message. Now, why was that important? I didn't know I was going to go into this, but I'm going to go into this because the message was important. And it was significant for me to have that 4th M to highlight the message of the presentation. That was also done deliberately with guidance from my mentor, David Brooks. So when an alliteration can be helpful to make it more memorable, and there are people who use P alliteration, they use T's, or they use a nice sounding a B. Audibly, that has a nice feel to it, but using the alliteration makes it more memorable. Music, the magic, the mystery. And then I doubled down. I pulled out my Darren LaCroix hat, even though I didn't know him at the time. And my delivery of the words, the music, the magic, the mystery. So I use my voice to create a sound almost like an onomatopoeia, which I'll discuss later, to let the audience feel the difference between the music, the magic, and the mystery, to then drive home the message. It's a lot about the alliteration, but when you think about it, ask yourself, how could I use a similar technique to draw the audience in, to have them not only hear, but almost see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I just want to emphasize the varying of and the emotion switch makes it, instead of just the M, it's M, M, M. It changes. So I've seen this with a lot of speakers. They might have the alliteration, but it's like delivered at the same pace, the same emotion, the same energy. It's like, no, it's okay. Like, have the three. There's a magic to the three, but vary the three. And you could even, in delivery, you could do one M towards the left side of the audience, one M deliver it to the center, and the other M to the left side. And then you could even step forward, but the message, take a half a step forward. So now you're enhancing the rhetorical device and your delivery, making you more compelling, making you unforgettable.
Please, friends, do not miss the power of what Darren just said. It is one thing to use the rhetorical device verbally, but when you can enhance it visually, it magnifies the impact. It's not just about the device. It's about how the device serves the audience in a better way. Truth be told, I didn't rehearse much stage movement in 1995. I didn't know enough about how to use the stage. I spent 3 hours with my coaches on delivery, the late Robert and Randy Gedalia, 2 Toastmasters and pro speakers from New York, who were very helpful to me. And I literally rehearsed how would I deliver the line, the music, the magic, the mystery. If you're watching the video, you will see this. If you're listening, go back online to YouTube and watch the video of my performance 30 years ago. You will see what I did. And I thought to myself, I've got the sound. How can I make it come alive? So I did music. I said, the music, I had a throwing hand movement. The music, the magic was like a ta-da. The music, the magic, mystery. And mystery, head in the sky, open my arms. What's happening around me? So the magic was the magicians, the hands, ta-da, or abracadabra. I used the motion to enhance the 3 words, the music, the magic, the mystery. But the message, kind of leaned in with my hand in a point, the message was important. So please understand, when you juxtapose the rhetorical device with correct stage and body movement, authentically, it really can enhance the experience that the audience has. So we've got a look at some hyperbole. We also looked at alliteration. And somewhere down the line, I use what's called parallelism, where you use a series of words that have the same rhythm to them. I talked about Pat Harper, a journalist in New York who was doing a report on the plight of the homeless. And I said, to appreciate their circumstance, she dressed as they dressed, walked as they walked, lived as they lived. It's a kind of parallelism. So you could see she dressed as they dressed as they, walked as they, lived as they. So the as they became the common theme that ran through that little section. And there are times we can use similar devices and similar methods to really enhance what the audience sees and experiences. As Darren said earlier, think about a story you're telling in your presentation. How can a device like this, she dressed as they dressed, she walked as they walked, she lived as they lived. And again, if you watch the video, I simulate her putting the clothing on. I'm shuffling down the street in New York City and I point to where she lived as they lived, which I get back to. You really can't see what it was until I said, there she sat, huddled in a doorway, shivering, trying to fend off the bone-chilling winds. So I combined the rhetorical device, dressed, walked, lived. I showed her living somewhere she was, I pointed down. But then when I said, there she sat, huddled in a doorway, shivering, I pulled my clothing toward me, my body. I shivered. I told you she was in a doorway trying to fend off the bone-chilling winds. So I gave you a picture of where she was, her condition she was in, and it was easier to visualize a beautiful network news anchor in the role of a homeless person in New York City, 30 years ago. So think about how the devices you use create the image in the mind of the audience to bring them to the scene and more deeply appreciate what's happening with the characters and their circumstance.
Mark, it's a lot to absorb, so I'm going to cut us off right here. I want to go more deeply into more rhetorical devices next week. But please, if you didn't write down, if you didn't take notes, how does this apply to my signature story or maybe a secondary story or say a new story that you're working on? But I highly recommend take that tried and true story and see if one of these devices could make it even better. We'll see you next week. Mark, final thoughts?
Don't forget, how can I use hyperbole, alliteration, and parallelism to deliver my unforgettable presentation? See you next week.
Hey there, this is Darren LaCroix. Thanks for checking out this podcast episode on YouTube. If you want all of them, not every one is on YouTube, check out your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss an episode. Keep being a sponge so you can be unforgettable.
Check out StagetimeUniversity.com, where good presenters become unforgettable.